But we'll dive in to a little bit of group of 5 schools if you want to here. Houston. So this, I mean, we have talked about it over and over. You look at the past 2 years that Dana's been there, and maybe 2 of the oddest seasons we've ever seen, especially when it comes to bringing in recruits and guys entering the transfer portal. You go back to 2019, and was it a tanking,
Right.
When there's always a lot of change going on in Houston. When you look from the early signing period to now, has there been any super big, astonishing changes?
I think there has. I mean, and this was
To no surprise.
Yeah, this is a program that we talked about. You asked me in the early signing period, is there a program you're disappointed in? With what they've done, and I thought there was an easy answer with Houston. I mean, they definitely signed Maddox Kopp, who's a great quarterback, and we have to give them credit for that, but they just didn't have the numbers that you like to see, and that may be, again, due to the fact that they're really trying to attack the transfer portal and get guys who can come in and make an immediate difference. But since then, they've done really well, and the headliner of that group that they've now signed is Conroe Oak Ridge running back Alton McCaskill, who had an offer from Alabama and Oklahoma State and had a lot of top schools really barking up his tree to try to get them to sign with them, and he's going to stay home and play for Houston. 6'1", 200-pounder who has the speed to hit the home run and the size to keep plays in the chains moving. I love this commitment from him. He's got great feet. So Dana Holgersing had a huge commitment from him. They flipped Garfield Lawrence from Tyler Legacy. He was a Kansas commit, flipped his commitment to Houston and signed with the Cougars this morning. That was a huge pickup for them on the defensive side of the football. That was a guy they needed. When you look at the defensive line group in this class, there just wasn't anyone there that you want to talk about until this guy came on board. And a lot of people feel like there were schools that were missing on Lawrence. The people who watched him play in person, the people who know that program well, coaches there, they feel like he's a guy who could play anywhere, and maybe he's one of these guys who's ends up being one of the absolute steals of this class. Those 2 names jump out to me, but they've added some other guys as well, like Carlton Guidry from Shadow Creek, a great wide receiver who's played at a championship team, and some other guys on that list as well. But keep an eye on them in the recruiting portal. As a matter of fact, or the transfer portal. As a matter of fact, I count here they have 4 guys who are coming in who are transferring from P5 schools into Houston. A defensive tackle, Latrell Bankston, who's coming from Iowa State. A weak side defensive end, Trey Williams, who's coming from Missouri, and 2 coming from Texas Tech, and Alex Hogan and Keshawn Carter. So those are some names to keep an eye on if you're a Houston fan who could come in and make an immediate impact.
Obviously, in a bigger group of 5 school like this, it's pretty reasonable that you see those transfer guys coming in pretty frequently from the Power 5 things. But going back to the 2, obviously Lawrence, he was going to Kansas and flipped, like you said, major flip there. Do you think that if those 2 start working out in that sort of way, that this is something that you're maybe going to see Dana hit the jackpot on, of people going, well, I could go play at a Big 12 school, I could go play at an SEC school, but why not stay home in the state of Texas and get to go make a massive difference at Houston rather than be a backup for 3 years at Alabama?
If you want my true opinion on it, Houston has to win those battles. If it's Houston versus Kansas, that's one that Houston has to win. If it's Houston versus Kansas State, they need to win a majority of those battles if they want to be the type of team on the field that they want. They need to be, they want to be. Those are battles that they should be competing for. If you're running a team, if you're the recruiting coordinator or if you're the head coach, you don't want guys that other people don't want. You want the guys they do want. That's what makes you successful. So they have to hit on a certain percentage of those guys. That's why it's big for them to get a commitment from Maddox Kopp, who was an Elite 11 quarterback, had other opportunities, and other people desired him, right? Those are the type of guys you need to see jump on board, and they need to do more of that. They have such a fertile recruiting hotbed in the Houston area, and I would like to see it worked a little bit more fervently there at Houston, and we'll see. I mean, maybe they're in a spot they feel like staff-wise we can't take as many high school kids because we have to have immediate impacts.
Right.
And you have to respect that, right? Like you can't judge them too harshly. if that's the decision that they've made as a staff. But moving forward, you have to land guys from the good players from Houston have to stay in Houston.
Right. Absolutely. And I would rather live in Houston than Lawrence, Kansas, but to each their own.